Good evening. You're watching the main news on HKIBC. I'm Cheryl Yuen. Here's a look at tonight's top stories. It's back to business for bars and entertainment venues as more COVID restrictions are eased. A COVID cluster has been identified in the second restaurant in Sheung Wan. And unemployment in Hong Kong climbs to a one-year high. Hong Kong has taken another step towards normality with more social distancing measures lifted today. Pubs and karaoke lounges welcomed visitors again after 4 months as the government launched the second phase of its timetable to ease anti-COVID curbs. Joanna Ho reports.
Despite Hong Kong's fluctuating daily COVID caseload, more businesses have been given the green light to resume operations. Bars, nightclubs, karaoke lounges, party rooms and mahjong parlors, which have been closed since early January, reopened their doors today. Restaurants will be allowed to serve customers until midnight, while bars can stay open until 2 a.m. with up to 4 people per table. Banquets can accommodate up to 120 guests. The operating capacity limit for cinemas, museums, event and religious premises was raised from 50% to 85%, and people don't have to wear masks when exercising indoors if venues such as gyms can undertake 6 air changes every hour.
戴口罩係舒服好多咯。
This woman says she'll now visit the gym every day as it is more comfortable exercising without a mask. But the gym owner is burdened by the extra cost. She had to buy 3 air purifiers to meet the air change requirement. Infectious disease expert Ivan Hong, meanwhile, says the government may allow people to stop wearing masks outdoors during the summer break. He said the emphasis should not be placed on daily COVID figures as most infected people were asymptomatic or only had mild symptoms. Hong added that the government should scrap the flight circuit breaking mechanism and allow inbound travelers to quarantine at home. Microbiologist Ha Pak Learn said anti-COVID measures should not be tightened again if most of those infected have mild or no symptoms. Joanna Ho, HKIBC.
A new cluster involving 5 customers have been found in a Sheung Wan restaurant, with 4 of them classmates in a training center. This comes as Hong Kong recorded 291 new COVID cases. Macy Mok reports.
The Sheung Wan branch of the noodle chain Tam Jai Sam Gor Mi Sian is at the center of the city's latest restaurant cluster. 5 people who sat at different tables in the restaurant on Queen's Road Central last Friday have come down with COVID. 4 of them attended the same class at the Benchmark Training Center in Sheung Wan between May the 11 and 15, but do not know each other personally. A 35-year-old man from the same class but who did not go to the restaurant tested positive on Monday. The Center for Health Protection said it is unclear whether the virus was transmitted at the training center or the restaurant, so those who were in the 2 places must be tested. The cluster at the Imperial Kitchen Eatery added 3 more cases to 29, while Sky Cuisine restaurant in Sheung Wan also had 3 more infections, taking the tally to 73. There were 291 new infections today, including 38 of which were imported, and 1 more COVID-related death. Health officials warned people to be on the alert as more restrictions were lifted today.
And of course, that would also entail some risk involving people taking off their masks. And therefore, members of the public would also have to be mindful about that.
Meanwhile, as the COVID situation improves, the accident and emergency units of 3 public hospitals, Tin Shui Wai, Queen Elizabeth and North Lantau will gradually resume regular services from tomorrow. Maisie Mok, HKIBC.
COVID infections in Shanghai have dropped to their lowest level in 2 months, but there are fears of a new outbreak in the southwestern province of Sichuan. Chloe Feng reports.
After a 7-week shutdown, residents of Shanghai have finally ventured out into the streets. This came as new COVID infections dropped to a 2-month low of 719. All the cases were recorded in quarantine facilities, indicating the city's dynamic zero status has continued, with the financial hub now keen to get back to full economic activity.
企业呢，在这个阶段里呢，企业主要采取闭环和半闭环的这个运行方式。
Vice Mayor Jiang Wei today launched Phase 1, which will run until the end of the month, allowing businesses to operate under a closed-loop system. Normal operations are planned to resume from the start of June. The city's container port is now operating at about 90% capacity, raising hopes that this will soon end the backlog of ships waiting to berth and help ease a crippling supply chain disruption. City officials hope that 4 subway lines and 273 bus routes will be running again from Sunday. While Shanghai recovers, there are fears of a new outbreak in Sichuan, with officials reporting a total of 149 infections. Beijing added 55 cases, with nearly 700 students and staff sent to quarantine after a university in the capital was listed as a high-risk area. The mainland as a whole recorded 1,000 new cases, almost 300 lower than Tuesday, with most of the infections in Shanghai. Chloe Fong, HKIBC.
North Korea has turned to China for help to contain an explosive COVID outbreak. 3 North Korean cargo planes reportedly traveled to the northeastern mainland city of Shenyang and returned earlier this week. Beijing has pledged to assist Pyongyang combat its first and worsening outbreak. The North has reported 2 million fever cases and 63 deaths. Supreme Leader Kim Jong-un ordered factories to churn out medical supplies, but he was lukewarm to an offer of aid from neighboring South Korea. U.S. health authorities are on high alert after the state of Massachusetts recorded a rare case of monkeypox following an outbreak in Europe.
This was really unusual because the patient had no travel history, no exposure to animals that would be known to be reservoirs. However, the team, thinking about the patient and hearing just over the weekend about some of the cases in the United Kingdom, thought more broadly about the patient's diagnosis. When they did that, they communicated that directly.
Monkeypox is a rare viral disease that first emerged in the Democratic Republic of Congo in the 1970s. The World Health Organization issued a warning after Britain reported 9 cases. Most of the patients didn't travel to Africa. Portugal has 5 cases, and Spain is investigating 23 suspected infections. The disease, which can be deadly, causes fever and is generally spread by close contact with bodily fluids. U.S. President Joe Biden is visiting East Asia in a bid to reinforce partnerships with South Korea and Japan amid challenges from China and the war in Ukraine. The Americans are on high alert following claims that North Korea is planning weapon tests when Biden is in the region. Sarah Wong reports.
U.S. President Joe Biden embarked on a 4-day tour of East Asia, almost 1.5 years since occupying the White House. He's visiting South Korea, then Japan, to consolidate Washington's longtime alliances after the war in Ukraine sidetracked its Asia pivot. Apart from China's growing assertiveness and increasingly bellicose North Korea tops the agenda, with U.S. intelligence claiming that Pyongyang could test weapons in coming days.
We are preparing for all contingencies, including the possibility that such a provocation would occur while we are in Korea or in Japan. I spoke with my Chinese counterpart this morning and covered this issue of the DPRK. And we are prepared, obviously, to make both short and longer-term adjustments to our military posture as necessary.
Beijing's top diplomat Yang Jiechi, meanwhile, urged Washington not to interfere with China's internal affairs and denounced attempts to divide and confront. That was a thinly veiled swipe at a summit of the Quad alliance, comprising the United States, Japan, India, and Australia.
Most of what the Quad does is coordinate on provision of vaccines and supply chains. They're trying not to make it look like it's a NATO But from Beijing's perspective, it's a helpful reminder that if China pushes us all too far, it could go in that direction.
Biden also hopes to deepen engagement with India after New Delhi's neutral stance on the invasion of Ukraine weakened the global sanction regime against Moscow. Sarah Wong, HKIBC.
Hong Kong's unemployment rate has risen to a one-year high of 5.4%. Over 200,000 people were thrown out of work during the 3-month period ending in April. That's about 17,000 more than between January and March, when the jobless rate was at 5%. Almost all sectors saw a surge in unemployment, with the rate in the catering industry at 13%. But Labour Minister Law Chi-kwong expects the job market to pick up following the relaxation of social distancing measures and the government's employment subsidy scheme. Hong Kong stocks slumped today following a retreat on Wall Street and a tech sell-off. But analysts expressed confidence in local equities in the long run because of possible supportive measures from Beijing. Chloe Feng reports.
Hong Kong's K-stock index plunged to a 2-week low today, dropping below 20,000 points during the day before ending down 2.5%. The Hang Seng Tech Index dived 4%. Tencent lost 6.5% after revenue growth stalled in the first quarter following China's regulatory crackdown. Other tech giants also retreated. Alibaba sank 7.4% and Meituan almost 4%. Local stocks lost ground also because of sharp overnight falls on Wall Street, which is gripped by inflation fears. But some analysts remain positive and predict a rebound in the second half of the year.
When you compare to the performance of the global index, the Hong Kong equity index is not doing extremely bad because the A-shares market, that means the Chinese equities, are doing quite resilient. Because the market is speculating that in the near future, the central government will introduce some policies to stabilize the economic growth, such as to relax the property market and also to relax the regulation on the internet sector.
Premier Li Keqiang has reiterated support for the digital economy, while Vice Premier Liu He has confirmed the important role of internet companies in China's economy. Chloe Feng, HKIBC.
Now let's take a look at the markets. The Hang Seng Index was down 523 points. Top 10 active stocks, Tencent down $23.80. Tracker Fund down 46 cents. Kuaishou down $2. China Mobile down 55 cents. The forex trading against the Hong Kong dollar, euro is at 8.25, British pound at 9.74, and Australian dollar at 5.49. The London FTSE is currently down 159 points. On to the weather now. Tomorrow will be hot and mainly fine. Temperatures will range between 24 and 30 degrees. Sunny on Saturday, but Sunday will be cloudy with a few showers. Now let's take a look at the weather around the world. That's our main news for Thursday night. Join us for more news at 11. I'm Cheryl Yuen. Good evening.